Hey everyone, welcome to How to Fuck Up a Startup. All right, mate?
Hi.
How's it going?
Yeah, it's not too bad, mate. The weather is gorgeous. I'm in shorts now for the rest of the summer, so...
What, like 3 days in the UK?
I don't know, it's been all right.
That's been all right.
Barely even summer.
We were just talking about differences in temperatures, and I've just come back from Austin, Texas, where the week previous to that I was sat in the car with Madison and it was about 30 degrees and we were moaning about sweating, to which I proceeded to pick up my phone and check what the temperature was going to be last week in Austin. And it was like 45 degrees, feels like 49.
That's horrendous. I can't even imagine. It's been a long time since I've been in that heat, yeah.
Yeah, very, very hot. But it's lovely, can't complain. The weather is good. I think everyone's spirits are up when the weather is up. So
I'd say so.
we're good. And then from a business perspective, exciting times. We were just talking. I'd be interested to get your perspective because this is kind of your first time through this as a founder. But one of the things that I've observed is you go through. It's massively phased when you're building a startup, right? So, like, I think we've got to the point in our business now where it's like maximum pressure, because what tends to happen is, you know, we were sat there, I remember, in front of the computer, like when we started this like 5 months ago, or lose track of time, 5 months ago-ish, and you were sat there saying to me, I feel like I should be doing more, like there should be more I should be doing, like finding work, because it's like that start-stop process, and then gradually over the course of the last 5 months, we've just built and built and built to the point where you're right at the brink now, I think, where you're ready for that next stage of growth, but haven't quite pulled the trigger. So you kind of, and you're like, and that's about hiring, that's about, you know, going to get people to help you to then scale it further, et cetera, et cetera. But we're right on the brink of that now, and that pressure's built. So how are you feeling?
I'm excited actually. You know, from a product guy's perspective, it's constant cycles. You always want to build more. It's like a bungee cord. Like you go through periods of releasing lots of stuff in quick succession, and then all of a sudden you're on something a little bit more complex and it lasts longer, etc. So really, I'm just waiting to push over the line because as soon as we do that, as soon as we've got that next round of funding, I can scale up the development team, and we can start building more quickly. You know, it's like it's really capacity based, and I'm really looking forward to that. So I almost feel like I'm on the start line again. Yeah,
it does. And I think that's the point, right? Is that it doesn't start or stop. Like you're kind of always in this constant phase of like continual growth and renewal. And I think actually that's one of the things for sure that I've learned through this process a couple of times before is that non-stagnation. It's just like that renewal again. It's like every day almost, it's probably a bit extreme, but certainly every month, every quarter, there's a new goal. Like it's something different. And you know, previously we've been very focused, because we did this purposely, very focused on product, like make the product good, you know, which is what we didn't do last time, because we're trying to build it as we were flying it. Whereas now it's like make the product really good. Like what about that period? Like think back this 4 months, forget going forward for a second, think about this 4 months. What do you think are the biggest things that you've learned about like that really from 0 to 1, building that first iteration of the product? Would there be anything that you pull out specifically?
I think the constant pushing for perfection is a waste of energy.
Like it?
Nothing's, I mean...
It's a good job because you haven't got it, so...
Don't be a dick.
I think we have actually, I don't know why I said that.
It's really difficult to control the need for perfection with the reality of your situation.
Yeah, it does. 100% makes sense.
Trying to push out a perfect product or a perfect feature it's possible, obviously, but it kind of slows everything else down.
Yeah, yep.
And realizing that instead of pushing for perfection at the beginning and breaking a specific feature or something down into bite-sized chunks, I mean that's the agile model anyway, breaking it down into chunks, but allowing you to release more and more iterations more quickly actually is more beneficial, because your beta users, for example, will see the incremental change, and actually being able to do it incrementally allows you to be more focused on it, and actually you can deliver what your customers want quicker.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting to see it happening as well. But what that requires, which I had an inkling for, but what that requires is really good feedback loops.
Yeah.
Feedback mechanisms, functions that allow your users to be able to give you that feedback and then map it against specific initiatives. And we built all that. Yeah. We built some of that. Yeah. It goes down to the very fiber of your platform, like analytics and things like that. We've only just put some decent analytics on the go, which are ultimately going to require tuning. But the first iteration is get out there. So,
well, and I think some of it as well, like listening to what you said and talking about, it's taking tough decisions that perhaps at the time don't seem like tough decisions, but they're incremental. Like one of the things, I'll be really specific here. One of the things that we did was decide not to go as deep within one of our integrations rather than go wider, right? And you could get to a point, and in our specific case it's integrations, but it could be anything. To your point, it's like a microservice or a specific feature or whatever it is. You can choose to spend 2 months going really deep into one specific thing, or you can go wider. And a lot of that is driven by the customer base. So you know that the idea of this initial stage of the process is to grow and to acquire customers. So you then go back and ask yourself, well, does the customer really care about the fact that I've added 3 more weeks of specific stuff to this? Or are they going to be more enthralled by the fact that we've got 3 more integrations?
Absolutely. I mean, what we've seen in that exercise is that it actually breeds more innovation just by doing it that way. Because, for example, we could have spent, God knows an amount of development resource and sprint time on just remediating stuff on AWS. But in reality, by opening up a new integration and new use case and building an external vulnerability scanner, we've kind of increased the scope of people available to us. And we're going to do that further with what I like to call the soft kind of tools, i.e. like policy management and training.
Non-integration.
Non-integration usership. That increases us out, because what I found with a lot of the conversations I've had, because I've had a lot of feedback conversations and research calls, is that I think our first barrier is people being scared of the technicality of some of the integrations that we're using. But we can control that fear by offering them something that doesn't require them to integrate, and then kind of bring them around in an asymmetrical way, which is exactly the type of innovation that I'm talking about.
And another example of that user behavior, I think, which is a really good one, is coming back slightly to that remediation point. Like, as security people or as technology people, our presumption early on was that people would want to click one green button and everything was fixed. But actually, what we found is that we were probably wrong. We are wrong. We were wrong in our first thesis, which was that they want it to be super quick and easy. Because in reality, almost counterintuitively, they want to make an effort, they want to understand the process, they want to take, albeit not as complex steps as it takes to do it from scratch, but they want to understand and feel some of the doing of the task so that they're adding some value, and some of those almost counterintuitive things we wouldn't have seen unless we've been taking the feedback that we were.
Absolutely, and whenever I describe it, I describe it as enabling activity rather than doing it for them, which we could absolutely do. We could spend a lot of time figuring that out. Just enabling them to do it quicker is actually as beneficial, if not more. And it's a really dynamic situation. It depends on what platform we're talking about, what kind of opportunity we're talking about. Like, people are really reticent to do anything automatic on AWS. And I get it. I totally get it. I wouldn't want anyone doing it for ours.
Operational environments.
Exactly, I mean, if we get it, the potential for us bringing down their entire product is totally there. So not so bothered about that. But on something like Google Workspace, if we could do it for them, they're absolutely up for it.
Corporate IT side, for sure. And then, so we talked a lot about product. I think the other exciting things, and the kind of talking back to that kind of pressure building, is that now we're in a space where it's almost like the pressure shifts, not necessarily from you to me, but there is some of that element where actually it's like, okay, I've built you something, go sell it now, like go find people that want to use it, right? And for me, both exciting and challenging, I suppose, is this concept of now go find that customer. Like, where does that customer exist, right? And it's taken, and we talked about this a bit yesterday actually, and I really like that conversation, which is about the fact that as founders, we fundamentally understand the value. Like, we look at it and we go, like, we sat there really yesterday and went, holy shit, like this is really cool. Like,
Yeah.
we even sat here this morning and we had a customer from 6 Point Media with us, and they were logging on and doing it live, and we saw someone doing it, and it was like, shit, you just have those moments where you're like, shit, we're adding value, this is real, right? But then the challenge for the go-to-market guy, who happens to be me right now as the other founder, is like, how do you then translate that? And it's to some extent frustrating even early when people don't get it immediately. Like, why do you not see what we see? So that challenge is going to be a really interesting.
It's like telling the story.
Yeah.
So when obviously we're a user on our own platform, we've got our own account, and we've started remediating security opportunities, and that's the hi-ya moment that you got the other day. I managed to wrangle our dev team into all having MFA enabled on Google Workspace, but seeing it happen, and actually. Look, it allows you to step into the user's mindset, I guess, and out of that, I produced my own feedback effectively. I saw that a number of opportunities needed exceptions on them, which has pushed exceptions now up on the roadmap. So yeah, really.
And it's just, what I love about it is that passion is like self-perpetuating to some extent, isn't it? Because you build a product which then I see and go, crap, that's awesome. Like, we're actually doing something now, which allows me to tell a better story, and then the cycle like continually goes on, and as we build that out, and now we're gradually kind of drip feeding out like the applications that are in the platform and stuff, people start to see the value, that passion feeds back, and then we get passionate outwardly about it. It's really exciting. And then next phase, so we've done that. I think one of the things that I also struggle with, particularly on product side, not struggle with, but it's just a really interesting dynamic, is this like, we've done, what's next? And it is continuous, but at the same time we had, I think, and you tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I always had this vision of my mind of like, terminology is always a weird thing. Like, you used to say MVP, I remember that, and it used to annoy me.
Still pushing to that.
Yeah, and I used to say like phase one, and we say beta, whatever the word is, it doesn't really matter. The point is I think we both had a vision in our mind of what that first bit looked like. And we're there. I think like we're pretty close.
We're very close
to what I had in my mind of like step one, and now it's like,
what comes next?
What's next? Yeah,
a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and it does now, but that's the point. Right? It's a really interesting reflection period where you're like, where now? And it's not a pivot. It's just like it's a renewal. Like
Well, it goes in cycles, doesn't it? So we can either choose to enhance what we've already built. Or we can choose to build more different stuff, more use cases, more integrations. And there's obviously a balancing act, because there are certain things, for example, exceptions, which I think is fairly important to how we move forward. That being said, you may see it differently. And it's a constant conversation between you and I. Like given our conversation yesterday, for example, about integration users against non-integration users, like, we don't have anything for the non-integration users other than the external vulnerability scanner. So that is limited. Like they won't see the exact value of that. For example. So maybe we push the non-integration user thing up the roadmap. And actually I think it probably is the next thing on the list anyway. But you get the gist. It's a constant cycle.
Yeah, and again, that always feeds into like marketing. So like the challenge that I've got now is I look and I say, because the conventional wisdom around this kind of thing is the hedgehog principle, which Jim Collins comes up with, which is be incredible at one thing and then defend your position in that one thing. And I think the interesting thing that we've got here, because I always describe our model as like width rather than depth, because as a small business, you've got 50 things you need to do for cybersecurity, and you want one thing that solves them all, right? Whereas that's not the way the industry has ever worked. The industry's always worked with being really, really good.
We do email security.
At a very, very niche use case. So we're kind of bucking the conventional wisdom in a cybersecurity sense, but then I think we're doing the same in a marketing sense, because actually, when I'm starting to build these ads on whatever platform, you're like, well, we've got one for email security, and we've got one for asset management, and we've got one for external.
So how do I sell that?
And which one? But again, I think it's back to data, and it's back to testing, and it's having the courage to build all of those, and then see where the data's telling us, like see what it is that the pain point for the customer really is. And I think I know. But I'm not going to say it because you want to see. You want to really not skew the data,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and as we think about growing then and building, to your point about product, that's when that loop's so important, because then I will come back to you and I will say, oh, you know, from a marketing perspective, everyone wants email security. So actually, to your point earlier, do we then plow more investment into email security, because that's where the biggest pain point is, you know?
Absolutely.
Good stuff, interesting.
Next big thing, I'm excited.
So what's next? What are we doing? What's over the next couple of months? What's going on?
Well, we're going to push it from a products perspective. We're going to push further towards that MVP.
What? Stop saying that. It was so
The way that I see it is, you're not. I mean, I'm no industry expert, but the way that I see it as an MVP is when you can, you have everything that has that wrapper of SaaS around it. So you can use multiple. You can have multiple users. You can do role provisioning, stuff like that, payments, all from the platform. That's for me MVP stage.
Do you know what everyone else says is an MVP?
Go on.
A laptop that has a little local function that calls a single API that does one thing. Like Lawrence has built 20 in our team in the last month as an MVP.
Okay, maybe I'll come up with a new term for it.
You definitely should. But anyway, I think here's the thing. Here's why I get upset about it, is because I think we're doing you and the whole of Bleach a disservice when we say MVP.
Oh yeah.
You know, because I think we've got an incredibly good product there. Like we said, moments over the last few weeks that are like, holy shit, we're adding real value here. I think now it's about getting the word out. I think now it's about telling the story. I think now it's about moving to that next level where those paying customers are just getting a continuous amount of value out of the platform that never stops, and we continue to grow it. You know, so that's really, really exciting. And then some exciting news come in about funding and kind of, how we're going to build the business and who we're partnering to build the business. So yeah, mad times, but
so exciting. I'm really looking for it. Really
it's exciting. Well, follow along for the journey. Hopefully some of these little nuggets are helping others in terms of
their hopefully, definitely.
We haven't talked much about what we fucked up today. It's been incredibly positive. Maybe that's the weather. It's all right. We can come back to fuck ups next time. We've got plenty.
If there are any.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us again on how to fuck up a startup. Remember, we fucked up, so you don't have to.